George had the privilege to make up for his biggest fatherhood blunder before he died in young Sheldon. Sheldon and Mary described a wildly ignorant dad in The Big Bang Theory when they discussed him. While they were significantly off base, with young Sheldon proving that George was a truly devoted dad and husband, he wasn't perfect. He had many transgressions, both as a husband and father, but arguably his worst crime George committed multiple times over the course of young Sheldon's 7-year run had often been overlooked, hence why it was never addressed. On the heels of George's death in young Sheldon Season 7, Episode 12, A New Home and a Traditional Texas Torture, the Coopers are left to deal with the aftermath of the tragedy in the upcoming final. That includes the patriarch's funeral. The focus would be on all of his great qualities, and understandably so, considering that they were mostly underappreciated when he was still alive. Before George's off-screen death, however, young Sheldon gave him the opportunity to make amends for his biggest fatherhood flaw in just one seemingly innocuous but very important conversation. As the family prepared to move, George and Georgie checked the roof for any potential damage. The Cooper patriarch reminded his son that in the future, when he finally has his own house, he needs to know things about it, including possible repairs. Georgie countered, however, that he plans on being rich enough so he could pay people to do it for him. Interestingly, instead of mocking Georgie, George stayed with him and his dream. Even when baby Cease's dad admitted to not having a concrete plan yet, George remained supportive and even optimistic about the idea. This was a big step for George, who was typically harder on Georgie than his other kids. He tried to connect with Sheldon and Missy, respectively, but in the process of working, catering to Mary, and dealing with the twins, he barely had the chance to establish a special connection with Georgie. Oftentimes, the pair was in a contentious relationship, with the Cooper patriarch often mocking or casting his son's ideas. Young Sheldon hasn't shown Georgie's reaction to George's death, but it was a great memory to have of his father, especially as he embarks on his own fatherhood journey. What George failed to realize early on is that he has more similarities with his son than he realized. Georgie's best qualities came from him, driven and responsible, not to mention being an unmistakable Texan. Baby Cease's dad hasn't been a father for long in young Sheldon, but it was already been clear that he would do anything for his family, just like George did for the Coopers. It's heartbreaking that George never saw his firstborn make his dreams come true, but it must be so comforting for Georgie to know that his dad supported his endeavors.